Anything exciting last weekend? Okay. Our guest presenter will have to show up at a later date because of kind of schedule conflict. So I'll post about when he is going to show up and present. So we'll talk more about his product after that. But first things first, any blurbs to share? Diego, I got yours. Anyone else has any blurb? Two. Matthew, you have something to share?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one from last week, so.
Yeah, no worries. Email it to me. The rest of you, can you have something by next week? I want everybody to come up to share something at some point. Good, good, good. Okay. Try to put a reminder. I'll stay after class and put the due dates on the assignments. Usually they're due Sunday at midnight. It's just kind of the process for each week. Anything due that week, Sunday at midnight. But I'll just formally stay and input that, just so you're not confused on due dates. All right, moving along, right? So we talked about product innovation charter. We need something written for management to look at so we can see how feasible, how reliable something is, and are we moving towards objectives and goals to presenting a new product out into the marketplace. And we said sometimes it just must be something altered, an existing product, and we just kind of give it a new name, extend the product line in some way, or we could come up with something revolutionary and kind of start fresh. The first thing we need, which we're going to talk about today, is an idea and concept. Right? So you're like, well, where does a good idea come from? How do we source a good idea in terms of creating a new product to launch and go to market? Right? What are some of the challenges as an individual creative? Right? As working within groups, the challenges of working in groups, the challenges of a firm, what kind of firm it is. There's also challenges within that. I kind of think of some different sources that we can look into to come up with some good concepts and ideas. And we'll also have a little group assignment today where we think of maybe some sort of innovative new product, right? And I'll talk about that more. All right, so concept generation. Okay, first thing we need, we talked last time about opportunity identification, how to find a good opportunity, right? We need to prepare for the idea, establish a team or nucleus for the ideation and screening stages, then train or otherwise prepare the ideation team. Right? We need to source good people within the firm who are good at this, because you're like, well, it's not so simple. One, the idea should be practical and it actually can be done. Two, there's an actual need in the market. It's not just a frivolous item that nobody needs, because we see a bunch of them. There's a ton of products out there that nobody really wants. No one really has a need for it, and they kind of go away. They go extinct, right? Things don't last as well too. So you like, and it needs to have some sort of appeal in terms of the form. Like, what does this product look like? What's the form of it? Is it simple? Is it complex? Is it a lot of involvement? Is it low involvement? Right? So a lot has to be taken into consideration when coming up with the concept. Okay, so problem identification, in-depth analysis of the market. What market needs what? Primarily through some form of problem analysis or scene analysis. So here we're talking about, hey, are you the good problem solver? We want good problem solvers on the team. Are you good at solving problems? What goes into being great at solving problems? Just off the bat, in everyday life, what kind of characteristics go into being great at solving problems? Any problem. What kind of characteristics do you think a person would have in order to be great at solving problems? What do you think of? You can use yourself. What now let's say someone's like, hey, trial and error. I'll try one thing, see if it works. If it doesn't work, I will try a different step. If it works, but do you think that that's more of a lengthy approach? How could you maybe forego some other things in order to be more efficient in problem solving? What do you think? Okay, so problem solving. You know, we want some people who uses aspects of technology. Seems possible solutions may have found new technology. Is the technology available to solve a particular problem? Is it available? And if not, can it be available in some rational way? And then you need the team, analytical problem solving, surprise problem solving, right? Surprise would be creative. Like there's people who could look at numbers, metrics, we can look at data and they can solve problems with that, but then there are people who don't necessarily need that much data because they have a creative mind and they can kind of see how you can improve something in other ways, right? And they need the end user. Other possible solutions may have a working prototype. Right? With that, you need to collect concepts from others in the organization and collect concepts from outside the organization. So if you have an idea, you want to conceptualize, hey, with the team and maybe some other things outside of the team, inside the organization. And then you'll pull of new product concepts from vague ideas to working prototypes and proceed from there. So here we're talking about creativity with product concept. How many of you consider yourselves to be creative? Who here considers themselves to be a creative? No creatives? Well, you do, right? But what is it that makes one creative? What is it about creativity? How will we even define creativity? What makes someone creative? Like, man, that's very creative. Yes?
I'd say, just being unique or like thinking outside the box.
Thinking outside the box. Right? Like, here's a box. Everything's been done this way for a very long time. A lot of people know about the box and they follow rules and protocols within the box. Can it be something outside of the box? Right? I'm a big fan of, they'll quote quite a few people up here in terms of creativity and innovation, like, you know, what it takes. I'm a big fan of a physicist named Richard Feynman. He's passed away long gone, but he's a Nobel winner in physics. Really good educator, very clear, almost teaches physics, complex physics. We're talking about relativity and even quantum physics and fields and things like that. Being able to teach it, I would say, to a tutor. And his thing is, he won actually a Nobel because they were trying to figure out kind of how the atomic bomb will work, right? What's the movie about the atomic bomb that came out not too long ago? Oppenheimer, right? Oppenheimer. Who's seen Oppenheimer? Pretty good movie, right? Long, but pretty good movie. All right, Richard Feynman was part of that team, right, that contributed. But they were trying to find out how would uranium scatter, or how would it move the atoms in order to create this chain reaction to actually create a nuclear bomb, right? Nuclear fission bomb, right? Breaking out atoms, chain reaction to create all this energy, mushroom cloud, et cetera, et cetera. And so a bunch of the physicists would write down all these mathematical models. It takes them hours. Richard Feynman said, hey, you know, it's not about really purely the math, it's more a visual representation. He started writing little diagrams. And so taking the math and putting it in a visual representation for kind of the average person to understand. And he won a Nobel Peace Prize because of that, because of those Feynman diagrams, they're called. Right, so think of something very, in that sense, too, like that's very creative, but obviously he has a background in mathematics, so his analytical mind, but still with a very creative mind, doing something new, thinking outside of the box, how important that is. So even for yourselves on a personal level, you're like, well, can you approach school, can you approach college in a more creative way? Right? Can you approach college in a creative way? Right? People like Zuckerberg and Gates may have said, yeah, I'm approaching a different way. I'm gonna create a project while I'm in school and seek out investors and maybe use other intelligent college students, colleagues, to help out with my project, right? We got Microsoft and we got Facebook right there, right? So you can approach things even while you are here if you just think outside the box, do something a little bit different. If not, then all you're gonna say is, I'm gonna go to class, I'm gonna do the work, and then I'm just gonna wait to graduate and get a job, right? That would be the box. Maybe out something outside of that will be a little bit more creative. All right, genius thinking strategies. How do we come up with some genius level strategies, right? It's thinking differently. Like, man, is there a different way to think about anything, any subject? Here, geniuses find many different ways to look at a problem. Einstein, for example, and Da Vinci looked at problems from many different perspectives. What was Einstein known for the most part? Was Einstein's big idea. It's a big idea of power Einstein. And why is Einstein such a thing?
I don't know if this is a theory of relativity.
Yes, relativity, right? You know, like, what's relativity? You're like, well, mass and energy are equal to one another at some point, right? Something that mass outlet has that equal energy outlet, and vice versa. Energy equals mass, mass equals energy equals mc squared, right? But most importantly, Einstein said, hey, what if everything in space that you see is like in some sort of fabric? You know, like that fabric, if it's heavy, it could dip down into the fabric and make other things circle around it. Like you would like a sheet, right? You put something heavy in it and you start putting smaller things by it, it'll start to spin around that hole, right? Because that thing has kind of dipped down. And people are like, wait, like space and time are relevant because they're all part of the fabric? Space and time are literally the same thing in some essence, right? And that's what you're like, well, time as we understand it is just a human construct for you to understand, but maybe in some real essence, there is no such thing as time, right? Because you can argue that, right? Looking at stars billions and billions of light years away, well, if we see them, if we were able to see them right now, or people were able to see us from billions of light years away, they see dinosaurs, you know, but there's not dinosaurs. Here we are here today, right? You're like, well, Einstein thought differently. That's a whole different perspective. Geniuses make thoughts visible. Da Vinci's famous sketches and Galileo's diagrams of planets allow them to display information visibly, right? It's one thing to claim you're a genius and have the words, but it's another thing to show people, right? Show people something visible, right? Show it so everyone can understand. Geniuses produced. Thomas Edison had a quota of one invention every 10 days. Mozart was amongst the most prolific composers during his short life. Right? Mozart did not live very long. Anyone here ever see Amadeus? Right? One of the greatest movies you ever get a chance is about Mozart's life. It's an excellent movie, but a very, very sad ending. Okay, geniuses make novel or new combinations. Einstein found the relationship between energy, mass, and the speed of light equals mc squared, right? Geniuses force relationships. They can make connections where others cannot. Kukule dreamed of a snake biting its tail, immediately suggesting to him the circular shape of the benzene molecule, just by seeing the shape of the bite. Geniuses think in opposites. This will often suggest a new point of view. Niels Bohr, another Nobel-winning physicist, conceived of light as being both a wave and a particle. Like, who would even think that, right? In your mind, you think that atoms are little tiny balls, right? They're just little tiny particles. In your mind, that's how you've been shown forever. Is that true? Think about that. It's like simple stuff, everyday things. Like, think of this. You never touch the table, ever. You put your hand on the table and push it down. You're like, I'm touching it. Like, yes, your perspective, right? Your perception is you are touching the table. And in all reality, electromagnetic force, the atoms are pushing against your hand. They never physically touch. It won't allow you to touch. There's an electromagnetic force repulsing, like a magnet. So we're just pushing your hand away. So like you never touch actually. But maybe you don't need to know that. You just know that you're touching it. Perception. Right? But light, as we see it, you may think that, hey, it's a particle, right? And some may say, no, it's a wave, right? Double slit experiment is a very famous experiment. So that light is sometimes a wave or a particle. It just really depends on who's observing it. Right? And things change once you look at them in physics. Like literally, it's almost like as if these things know they're being watched and they'll change. So, for example, you see light using one instrument, you may see it as a wave, and if you actually try to look at it in some way using some other light to analyze it, in some way, like it turns to a particle. Maybe it knows it's being watched. It doesn't want you to know the true reality. But if you didn't even think about that, that would never even come to mind. So you're like, hey, you know what? Think differently. Right? Think differently. Or think in opposites. Geniuses think metaphorically. Bell thought of a membrane moving steel and its similarity to the construction of the ear, leading to the telephone earpiece. Right? So Alexander Graham Bell came up with the telephone earpiece, shaped like an ear, but thought of as a membrane moving through steel. Still use that concept now. Geniuses prepare themselves for chance. Fleming was not the first to see mold forming on a culture, but was the first to investigate the mold, which eventually led to the discovery of penicillin, right? Which just means curiosity, right? Investigating things, seeing how things work. There's actually, I wanted to bring here to class, but there's a shaver, Philips make it, and I've been using it for like over 10 years. Right, so like to shave in the morning. So if you go to Target or Walmart, any kind of big box store, and you go to the men's section and look at some of the shavers for the face, right? What you will see is a bunch of shavers. I can see if I can pull it up here. That only take advantage of one side. There's a hand grip and there's a shaver. Maybe it has an adjustment piece to shave your beard. And you're just like, how come no one ever used the opposite side? You're holding your hand has two sides, the top and the bottom. Like, what's the bottom for? Just to put the charger in? You're like, how come no one ever thought of like using both sides? That just seemed like practical, but they haven't. Except for maybe just a couple. So any of the guys here, like in the morning when you shave or whatever, your razor, does it have things on both sides? Shaving equipment on both sides? Anyone here? Just one side. All right, maybe there's an adjustment. Here, I'll see if I can. this is what I'm talking about, right? So you're like, well, man, there's hundreds and hundreds of men's shavers, right? Hundreds. We just see, hey, just put the shaving here right there, and you're like, well, what about the bottom? Well, that's what you're just charging. Same here, right? Hundreds. Right? But I'm like, man, nobody wants to buy, who wants to buy multiple products for kind of the same usage, right? One where you may need to shave your head, cut your hair, shave your beard, trim your body hair, et cetera, et cetera. You're like, man, what if there's one, right? That would make more sense, right? It would make things more simple for you. So yeah, the body grooming, right? So if you get a chance, look at this. I think it's the best kind of shaver. It makes sense. It's just one device that can be used for all sorts of purposes. And really good quality, right? Because Philip's been around a long time. If not, then you're like, well, I gotta buy two different shavers for two different reasons, right? So like that would just, you would think that that would be obvious, but no. So I would say whoever came up with this, somewhat of a genius. It can be improved, of course. I think it would be better. They could go a little bit further, but I'm like something as simple as that. Okay, historic roadblocks to creativity. I think there's a world market for maybe 5 computers, right? Thomas Watson, chair of IBM, 1943. Like, well, why do you think that? Why only 5 computers? Right? But you have a mental roadblock. Computers in the future may weigh no more than 1.5 tons. That was stated in Popular Mechanics in 1949. Like, well, okay, that person has very limited thinking, right? I can assure you that data processing is a fad that won't last out the year. That's from Prentice Hall in 1957. All right, here's one. Steve Jobs, Apple Computer. So we went to Atari and said, we'll give it to you. We just want to do it. Pay our salary, we'll come work for you. And they said no. So then we went to Hewlett Packard and they said, we don't need, you haven't got through college yet, right? I'm like, well, okay, well, Steve, Apple get turned down many, many times, right? Why? Because people weren't able to see the future, see where things are going. Here's another one from Gates. Stephen Gates said a little bit thing. Here's 640K of RAM ought to be enough for anybody. Right? Think of your computer hit that now, how slow. All right, so you kind of get this, right? So you're like, all right, to be creative means you have to kind of be forward thinking. 2, you have to say, I do want to go outside the box, right? Here's what everyone's doing, here's what everybody knows. How come they won't do something completely different? How come this product will have a different form, a different approach, right? Some other obstacles, groupthink. We think that we are being creative, but in reality, we're only coming up with ideas that our group will find acceptable, right? Social harmony, right? People just think like, hey, I'll keep the social harmony. Whatever the group says has a consensus for, I think I'll go with. Be like, it may not be the best, right? You know, there's a consensus. Targeting error. We keep going back to the same simple demographic targets. For example, the under 35 or under 50 markets, right? Like, well, you can't promote a new product to those, you know, over 50. Right? Poor customer knowledge, complexity, lack of empathy, too many cooks, right? So a small new product team works fine, but large companies especially are prone to internal competition for power and influence, which means that there's even challenges in group because everybody wants their idea to stand out amongst others. Some barriers to firms, right? So it's like there's barriers that individuals not having the foresight to have really innovative products. There's barriers to just working within teams and groups, but there's also challenges with firms. A lot of firms are not diverse enough in its functionality, right? So cross-functional diversity. Diversity leads to more creative stimulation, but also to problem-solving difficulties, right? You're like, well, to have diversity in different teams, cross-functional teams, someone from, finance, someone from marketing, someone from the design team, right? All these different functional teams, it can be great, right? It can stimulate creativity. But maybe if you have too many teams, it may have difficulties in coming to a consensus. Another barrier to firms, allegiance to functional areas. Team members need to have a stake in the team's success, or they won't be loyal, or individuals won't be loyal to the team. Right? So loyalty to the team. Kind of like how companies want you to just embrace their culture and be excited about working there and the products that they sell. Social cohesion, if interpersonal ties amongst team members are too strong, candid debates may not occur, resulting in less innovation. Right? You want everybody to be cool and be friends within the team, but you also want them to disagree. You know, you want to be disagreeable at times if you feel there's need to be. You also want to push and challenge and not just have that social cohesion. And then role of top management. Management should encourage the teams to be adventurous, otherwise only incremental changes will occur. Right? If management is very, very conservative, it won't allow people to think too far ahead. It will just allow people to think in very small steps, because they'll be too afraid that management will take their creative ideas as something too fancy, right? Or not practical. So the role of management in stimulating creativity. Recognize individuality is important. Be tolerant of mistakes. Mistakes will happen. Be supportive under stress. Techniques include competitive teams. Have teams compete against one another. See best idea wins. Idea bank of unused ideas for possible reuse. Okay, what were some old ideas we threw away months ago or last year? I wonder if we could revisit those and see if we could expound on it. Encourage interaction, even in how offices are laid out. I've done some work with organizational psychology, right, as a psychologist. And one of the main things to improve productivity is just the layout, the color schemes, the layout of functional areas, productive areas, right? Kind of like, hey, should people be standing or sitting at certain areas? Will it make their job easier? Will they like coming to work more? Are the colors bright enough to keep people motivated? Are the colors dull to make you sleepy and tired? I think, for example, like this room. This room looks kind of dull. The colors is very muted. It might spark a little bit more energy, innovation, if like the chairs were brighter, right? Maybe different kind of wood. You know, think of like even if you put some old vintage wood in it, you might have like, oh, it feels a little bit more old school academic. It might inspire you, motivate you or something, right? Different pictures, maybe newer technology, things like that. All those things make a difference in terms of making people motivated, which creates creativity. You know, might make you feel more inspired. That inspiration will fuel your creativity. Right? So like sometimes just how things are laid out are important too. But I was going to say, you know, a lot of companies used to have the old cubicle style workspace, right? Everyone has a barrier from the next person, so you gotta like reach back and talk to somebody, can't really see people. And although it gave people privacy, what it did do too is allow people to just web surf and work all day because nobody can see them. It didn't allow for like communication across teams because people are involved, right? And so what they did is kind of created open spaces. They're like, oh man, open spaces make everyone feel equally important. Like you can see the CEO right there. You can see the vice president. You can see your team members. Like you can see everybody in the same space, right? There's no barriers. And it made people feel part of like a beehive, right? It made people feel as one, more so than it did with walls and little barriers and cubicle. But just even things like layout will kind of imbue some sort of motivation in that sense. All right, and that's, we'll talk about this before we get into what I would like you to do today. Okay, so what do we need? We need kind of 3 dimensions we need to focus on with new products. The first thing is the form, the physical thing created, or for the service, the set of steps which the service will be created. Right? So like, Amazon, innovative, right? Shook up the world, disrupted the marketplace. Like how? Well, they made things easier to buy, to get delivered, and to bring about like so many different products from so many different producers into one space. Like, okay, that's what people want. We want convenience, right? We want it quick, right? We want it tomorrow maybe, or 2 days max for a lot of things. We want a ton of options so we can compare against other products, right? We want it reasonably affordable. So that in itself is the service that really stands out. You're like, man, Amazon is really creative, right? You can do a one-click purchase, you can look at the reviews. It simplifies everything that would require you to make a purchasing decision. Look at the reviews, Amazon, I recommend reviews because this one had 30,000. Look at the stuff, makes it easy to buy, be there quick. Like, wow, this is phenomenal, right? But if it was a physical thing, right? We could look at the major players. You know, most people buy Apple partially because it's a beautiful laptop. And it's beautiful because it's simple, right? So sometimes less is more. People are like, I don't want something with all that extra stuff. Some people think that way in terms of cars. They're like, man, I like that simple design car. Right? The Range Rover is kind of a very beautiful, simply designed vehicle. Right? People are like, man, that's timeless, it's classic, it's elegant, but it's just simple. So part of the reason why people buy Apple products is they're beautiful products. Phone's beautiful, the iPad's beautiful, and the laptops and computers, they're beautiful, right? The design is really nice. They like the form, maybe one of the main attractors for why people buy Apple products, right? And then you'll have, I like the ecosystem, I like the simplicity of the apps, all that stuff. But the form is a huge reason, right? Next, the technology, the source by which the form is to be attained, right? So like, all right, you can create something beautiful, but it still has to perform, you know, from a utilitarian perspective, it still has to do what you need it to do, and hopefully it does it well, right? So you need the technology in some way. Maybe with Apple, you would say, hey, the technology is the operating systems and applications, apps and operating system. Operating system and apps. Apps and operating system. Right, we have that, we can actually make this a reality. Good operating system that process the information, right? And then applications to make people be able to retrieve information and do things. Right, make it utilitarian. All right, and then third, we need the benefit or need. Benefit to the customer for which the customer sees a need or desire. Right? So back to Apple, you're like, well, I need computing power and to process to do things. Right? What do you need? Like, I need to send emails. So I need communications, text, email, social media, phone call. I also need to feel and create by taking photos and videos and have that option. Right? And I need it to be simple. I don't want to tap on 30 things to do one sort of objective. I want to do it in 2 steps, 3 steps. Right? And people are like, yeah, that's my benefit, that's my desire, that is my need. Right? I need it to be simple, I need it to be quick, right? Because we're all kind of for convenience. Right? So form, technology, benefit, need. So technology permits us to develop a form that provides the benefit. So you have to have some sort of technology. Remember I said like Apple operating system applications there, right? And maybe you could throw on top of that hardware too, right? You do need a good sensor for the camera and all that to make the pictures beautiful, and things of that nature. Okay, so what I would like you to do today in your groups is come up with the most creative product that you could think, right? And show us a form, which means that find something that'll represent your form, right? I don't know, you may be ChatGPT to create, generate a product or something, even if you would like to. But a product, what real benefit do you think it serves, right? What's the real benefit of this thing, right? What, and by which technology would it work? It could be anything. It could be, you know, say Starbucks has its own form, technology, and it serves a benefit in need in order to get you your coffee, the good coffee drinks that you like, right? So you can describe all three of the things that we just talked about: Starbucks coffee, or Dunkin' Donuts coffee, right? Or any fast food product. It could be clothing, it could be a car, it could be a vehicle, some sort of technology, it could be anything, right? And if you want to maybe include a service or do a service, I'll leave that up to you. But we'll take about 5 minutes. Get in your groups. Let's see how creative you can be in coming up with an innovative product to share. Maybe it's something you can just put into like a one-slide situation, right? Just naming the form, technology, and the benefits of this. So we'll go for about 5 minutes. So YouTube group, YouTube group, YouTube group, YouTube group. Alright, look, a couple more minutes. Who needs more time? Raise your hand. More time? Anyone watch the Derrick Rose retirement, jersey retirement ceremony? You did?
Yeah, I saw a video of that. I wish I was there for the tickets. It's too
Yeah, I wanted
expensive.
to go to it.
No, it's actually-
And Derrick Rose fans? You feel like his jersey should have been retired, even though he didn't win any championships?
I think so. I think it went, basketball.
Cause he's from here, right?
Yeah.
Chicago.
You know, just send me in high school.
Yeah. And I saw a lot of arguments online, and like, oh, he deserves it just as much as Jordan. You know, 'cause Jordan's not from Chicago, but he won 6 championships. I'm like, how do they compare? You know?
How would you compare Jordan to Rose?
Yeah, I'm like, you can't compare Jordan.
It's like comparing apples and oranges.
Yeah. Who needs more time? Okay. Let's see what we got. Ideas. Do you have something to share? Okay.
We didn't like make a slide or anything, but we didn't make a slide.
We just want to talk about it.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, sure. If you have a slide, shoot me an email of it now, just so I can bring it to my laptop.
We kind of thought about like customizing, how there's so many different types of toothpaste, and there's like more than one person in the household most of the time. So instead of buying like 4 different toothpaste, like if I have sensitive teeth and my sister has, like she wants whitening charcoal toothpaste, instead of buying 2 different tubes, it's kind of like you order with the chemicals or whatever you want to do, like enamel protection or whitening. You get the cylinders, you put it into the dispenser, and there'll be like a touchscreen on there. But if I want whitening and sensitivity relief, I'll select those 2. It'll give me a toothpaste with those 2. If my mom wants charcoal with enamel protection, she'll just select those 2. It'll leave it with that.
So what you're envisioning is like a device that can hold, say, 4 different types
Yeah.
of toothpaste?
Yeah.
But it's like a device that you would put in your bathroom. What would you do? Like press it to put the
Yeah, I guess it's
toothpaste?
like a dispenser, almost like a
So it's
touchscreen.
a dispenser.
But instead of like having to buy 4 different rolls of toothpaste or tubes of toothpaste, I can just kind of select what I need at that time. So like my sensitivity's gone, right?
Yeah.
I want to just focus on whitening and protection, gum protection, all that stuff. I can just select those 2 instead of reordering.
So would you buy as you go, or would this be subscription?
I think it'd be a subscription, like a monthly thing, but you can switch out what you get each month if your needs change.
Gotcha. Dispensers, manual or automatic, you thinking? Push a button or just hold the toothpaste under?
I think you gotta push to select what you need, but then once you put the toothbrush under it, it should just come out. Like it'll sense that you're ready.
Okay. Alright, excellent. I like that, yeah. Good job. Next. Want to share what you have?
Yeah, we designed it to be kind of like a website right now.
Okay, is it something, you want me to show or is it something? Okay.
So like we
so it's a website
Yeah.
or an app that hosts like contract work?
Yeah, it was like contract work and then they, and then we.
Okay. Alright, okay. And then back here, what were you thinking?
We came up with, it's basically like a safety jewelry. So it'll be like a necklace or like any type of jewelry with like a GPS on it. And it will have an app connected to it and almost like a Light 360 to track people. And
So it's like an AirTag for jewelry?
yeah, but this one's gonna be better because it won't be through Wi-Fi. So it's always like you're always gonna be able to track each other.
Gotcha.
And also, like it'll be through satellite, and the market would be like young women.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is it something that you found that you wanna show us? Or you just something you
No,
think of?
we came up with it.
Okay.
We were also thinking of like possibly putting in like a SOS button, just in case if something does happen, send like a notification to the app that you're using usually.
And when you think of like the form, is it something that's kind of different items, like, oh, it's a pretty little rose that you can put on your watch? Or is it like, or all standard, like a standard little AirTag looking thing, that's super small? Like, what do you think in terms of how it looks?
What do you think?
So originally, a lot of these I was thinking would have it look like regular jewelry so people don't know that it's like a tracker. So, well, this could be bad and good. But sort of like this, so it looked like a regular jewelry, possibly like this.
Like a
would be
charm
yeah,
almost,
like a
of some
charm,
kind?
like be like the button or like the GPS would be like hidden. So it's
Okay.
not too obvious that it's a tracker and you're not just having like a big tag, like air tag on you at all times. So it looks nice.
I think that's a wonderful idea, only for, in a sense of like, think of where you could go with it. Like, you could link up with, say, Pandora, and have Pandora put that device either on their stuff or in the jewelry. Right, so think about how cool that it would just simply have the technology that you're creating, and now you could send us to Rogers and Hollins or Pandora or whatever jewelry makers decide to say either I would put it inside of your watches, your bracelets, or make it a charm that's attached to the jewelry, right? So you're like, hey, I could link up with the retailers who actually produce jewelry and have them buy it instead of trying to having to always sell to an individual customer to go to my website and buy my little device, right? Like, you would get a ton of business, maybe business to business, kind of aspect. Right, excellent, I like that. What were your thoughts over here?
So we came up with the idea of like making like, you know, like the batteries kind of like Energizer, they're seldom making them like rechargeable. So like customers can reuse and save money. But like then we also can like sell it in like different ways where you can sell like the charger for them like individually. You can sell like just a pack of batteries and you can do it a bundle together and then for value purposes. But like the idea is like you can still use them like everyday items, but like you can say you want to recharge and reuse them.
So rechargeable batteries, but rechargeable.
Yeah, it's like the Duracell double A's and
Yeah.
triple A's.
Yeah, okay. Alright, good job. If it was up to me, wireless charging, Wi-Fi charging. That would be it. Charge your phone just Wi-Fi, you never have to plug it up ever again, right? Charge it up in your home, just connect to Wi-Fi, sends a signal, a beam of energy, and you charge your phone, you never have a low phone. Okay, alright, good job. Okay, some other patterns in concept generation, right? Like customer needs, firm developed technology produces form, firm developed technology finds match to needed customer segment, or produces form, firm envisions form. Developed technology produce the form, test with customers to see what benefits are delivered, et cetera, et cetera. So those are just kind of some of the main patterns you'll see when companies are coming up with concepts and how to So what exactly is a product concept? Verbal or prototype statement of what is going to be changed and how the customer stands to gain or lose. Right, remember we had that product innovation charter, but here we're like, hey, production concept two is something we kind of have to write down and present. Either we talk about it verbally, or we have some sort of statement, right? Maybe we write down a statement and we show it to management. And you're like, okay, here's something that we're thinking, here's how it benefits customers, right? And all of it how it benefits us. But then what does customers have to lose? So we always say pros and cons. Nothing's perfect, right? Something might be given up for the new idea. What's the rule with product concept? Well, you need at least two of the three inputs that we talked about, right? Form, feasibility, like demand from customers. To have a feasible new product concept, and all three to have a new product, right? So like, if you only get two, you're like, all right, it's not the greatest form, right? It's not the best looking device, it's not actually that complicated, that doesn't matter, it's just a small alteration, but it's a small alteration that people need, right? And there's the technology to support it. Like, the form may not be that great, but the technology's there and there's a benefit and need, so we just make small changes. Or you say, we totally change the form because there's a benefit or need. Technology may not be all there, which means that usually you will run into issues, customer service, people kind of unsatisfied. Like, well, for right now, it makes sense. Before our competitors reach our customers, let's just go ahead and give them what they need, and we'll worry about technology later. We don't have the technology really to make a superior product, but we get two of the three. Right? And then to have all three, then you have a totally new product. Like, all right, there's the benefit or need, we have technology available to support it, and it has a really good form as well too. Now, I was thinking too, sometimes simplicity wins for new products. And sometimes I think we tend to think very complicated when we think about a new innovative product, but things should be simple. I was thinking today, I was like, man, the manufacturers who produce the little mud flaps on the back of 18-wheelers, semi-tractor trucks. I'm like, such a simple thing, but every truck needs that, right? Just to put on the back wheels, well, multiple wheels, right? All through the vehicle. Right, so that mud doesn't splatter all over, hit cars behind you, all these things. I'm like, such a simple product that would have such a high demand. Imagine that, just doing that. A buddy of mine is actually the guy who invented WeatherTech floor mats, right? McNeil, right? That's his last name, John McNeil. And he, the guy's, he's a billionaire, so he has, 50 Ferraris, right? I'm a Ferrari guy, whatever, I go to these events, and he's there, but I'm like, he came up with the concept of this, like, laser custom floor mats. And you're just like, wow, that's such a simple idea, because the manufacturers were providing floor mats with the car, but usually they're not like the greatest floor mats ever, right? They may not rise up on the side to prevent like mud from splashing other places. They may not be completely tailored to fit tight into the footwells of cars, back, rear, and front. And he came up with the concept. All you would need is basically just the schematics of every model, make a model of vehicle, and do sort of a 3D laser kind of thing. Voila. Right? You can customize it, you can put logos, people put monograms, their names on them. You know, like, everybody loves that. Why? Because guess what? You need 4 floor mats per vehicle usually. You might even very simple things. Sometimes it's not about reaching too far and thinking of very complex innovation, but just taking kind of an old idea and just revamping it. So maybe think about the two moving forward with your projects. Hey, why do we need a product concept and not just an idea, right? Need to judge whether it's worthy of the public, right? You need a concept. You need people to kind of get in on it. You do have to have sort of a model of it in some way so people can judge it. Potential customers do not have enough information to judge the worthiness of an idea. The product concept gives them the required information, right? Which means it's just information that is. Example, would a taxi operator like cars with a 10 cents per mile operating cost, right? Less than not if it used Caterpillar tractor technology instead of wheels, right? E plus technology. They're kind of giving an exaggerated example, but I would just simply say, if you think of taxis versus Uber, well, just rideshare in general, with Uber all day, right? You're like, wow, I didn't create the car, because the car was already created, right? It doesn't have to be a special car, because anyone can use their car. Anybody who has a car has access. But what if you just create a platform, an app, where you can integrate all the ride sharing possibilities? How much it would cost to go somewhere, how long it would take for them to pick you up and drop you off, et cetera, et cetera. So in reality, like Uber is a technology company, right? Disguised as taxi service, right? It's just technology, right? It's just really an app using the technology. Same with Uber Eats and Grubhub and all these different things, right? Kind of disguised as taxi service, right? Okay, new product concepts and a new product, right? We say, hey, it's not a new product unless it meets all of it, right? It can still be a viable thing if it has at least two. Need or form or form of technology. But usually you definitely want to have at least the need. So need or form or need or technology. Here's an example, the designer decaf. Benefit, consumers want decaffeinated espresso that tastes identical to regular. Who are my coffee drinkers? Raise your hand. Who drinks decaffeinated coffee from time to time? When and why?
When I want coffee and it's too late.
Late at night, right? Do you find a really good tasting decaffeinated coffee anywhere? Or do you find that decaffeinated coffee is just, it is what you get? There's nothing that's like superior.
It's okay. Like it's not as good, but it can be fine.
Yeah, like for some reason, decaffeinated coffee just does not taste like caffeinated coffee, right? Like, well, caffeine extracted from the coffee beans is an important part of the taste profile. Maybe what your mind perceives as coffee, and your mind kind of like something else, different category, because there's not enough caffeine going into the neurons of my brain, right? But here we say, hey, maybe we fool customers, right? Customers want decaffeinated espresso that tastes identical to regular form. We should make a darker, thicker Turkish coffee-like espresso. Like, okay, maybe the visibility of it, make it a dark roast, and even a roasting of it. Like, well, you can't do it maybe with a medium or a light roast. It has to be maybe a dark roast or Turkish style. Right? Technology, there's a new chemical extraction process that isolates and separates chemicals from foods. Maybe we use that for decaffeinated espresso coffee, right? It's like the old way doesn't work because maybe we weren't able to extract as much of the chemical compounds from the beans to make it taste like regular coffee, right? Why do each of these taken individually not be a product concept? So that's the question. Each one of these may not be just a concept, right? Maybe it doesn't meet the test that we saw, right? So we're like, hey, form, Turkish coffee like espresso, darker, thicker, not on its own would be a concept. Because you're like, well, maybe there's not a demand for it, or maybe there's not the technology technology's here, but you're kinda like, there's no real form, right? You're not talking about demand. And the benefits here, but you're not talking about form, or you're not talking about technology, right? It's kinda show you like, hey, them isolate alone, if this was a concept, which is just, you could say a statement put out there to others to say, hey, we're doing something new, it's not enough on its own. You may need all three, right, together. Toilet brush example, idea, a new and improved toilet brush. Concept, toilet brush that contains detergent, that's also refillable and easy for the customer to detach and handle. So here's a product, the execution of the concept. You're like, hey, we got a Lysol toilet brush, it has Lysol ready, cleaning compounds on it. Maybe it has scrubbing bubbles, because you're like, you can't just have a cleaning agent, you should have like something that's abrasive, right, to get good carbon around, off the toilets. Clorox toilet wand, like it made the form may be very nice, I don't know if you've seen those Clorox toilet wands, or others, right? And the last is what the concept is and is not. It is learning needs of computer users can be met by using online systems to let them see trainings to use on related software packages, right? Good concept, there's a need and there's technology, right? Software packages, needs, and there's some technology to support. What is not is a new way to solve the in-home training or educational needs of PC users. There's a need, right? But actually more like a wish. It didn't say anything really about the technology behind it. And it's not, let's develop a new line of instructional CDs. There's technology only, lacking market need and form. It didn't say anything about the people want instructional CDs, actually are benefit to them, bettering their business. Okay, well, in there, and then I got our blurbs, so we got 2 blurbs today. Let's pull those up. Oh, actually, you know, we'll save the blurbs, because it's time out, right? Time for you. Okay, we'll save our blurbs for next week, but for the rest of you who haven't submitted anything for a blurb, please get something in for next week, for Monday.